Welcome to the Raisina Ideas Pod 2023. Minister Sabry, it's such a pleasure having you here with us. You had, I know, a very engaging day. And so here is some more YouTube engagement for you.
Thank you very much for having me. It's my pleasure to be part of your engagement and also the Raisina this year.
We are talking at a very troubled time, not just in our neighborhood, in countries which are undergoing economic crisis like Sri Lanka is, but across the globe.
Yes.
And as the war in Ukraine drags on, as the global headwinds because of the fallouts of that war start ravaging many other countries around, the danger looms for many others.
Correct.
And always, it is a combination of, the international situation and also the result of many decisions which perhaps went wrong.
Correct.
Should not have been taken correctly.
That's
so
right.
in a nutshell, for the audience, can you explain how did Sri Lanka get to where it is today?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of bad policies, bad debt, and the circumstances. Circumstances in the sense of what COVID happened, the moment COVID happened, tourism was disproportionately affected a country like Sri Lanka, which dependent for its foreign currency. And then, of course, escalating prices all over the world on grain, on fuel, on coal, really had a problem when our depreciation took place. Then, of course, wrong policies for a long period of time, a welfare state, the populist policies, which could not be sustained with the tax cut which came in as policy intervention. So it was a combination of those three, yeah.
And so, as a result of the crisis, now where you are, have been negotiating a package with the IMF. There are certain things that the IMF requires you to do as conditionalities. What are the kinds of conditionalities? How hopeful are you of getting the IMF bailout package? How much of it are you proposed to get out? And does it really help you out?
Yeah, I think it will help out in the sense, when it comes to IMF bailing out of a country which has been declared bankrupt or otherwise it had been declared as unsustainable of paying the debt. There are two components. One is you have to get debt assurances from the bilaterals, which is challenging. And as far as the IMF pre-actions, what we need to take in terms of the staff level agreement, we have taken all those things, so 15 of them. For example, cost reflective pricing, more revenue basis, and then independent central bank. So many of those things we have done. I think those things which we could have done or should have done with or without IMF, this is good for the country, though it is not very popular. But the problem is how to sell these reforms to the people because it's directly going to affect them. All this while what we have done is used a printing machine to print the money and then inflation resulted in, and that giving hope to the people that welfare state is the way forward, which now we can see that it's not sustainable unless a sustainable revenue model is there. So it is there, we are doing it, and it's difficult to sell the reforms to the people because that's directly affect them. But on the other hand, IMF will bring a lot of confidence to the country. It will probably give us access back to the financial market, as well as it will also open up investment which has been ceased since last year or so. So what we are at the last stages of the discussions which are going on, we are very hopeful within this month, EFF should come to the country. Not that money going to make a huge difference, but with that confidence and will open up so many other avenues available to us.
See, the change you are talking about, inflation easing, investments coming in, is a process which takes time. And the experience of all IMF bailout packages and such bailouts has been in the past, that it takes a few years before things ease down, before things settle down. Now, how do you navigate the political space? Kind of sell these reforms, sell these changes which are mandated by the multilateral development institutions. And a lot of countries have struggled to do it.
Yeah.
So what are the challenges you're facing and how do you propose to go about it?
Yeah, that's a big question right now we are facing. I think some of those reforms are very, very required, but then selling it is becoming very, very difficult for us. But luckily for us, tourism has revived, and with that comes a substantial amount of foreign currency to the country. And then we have put in place some import restriction in order to prevent senseless import of everything and every kind. So therefore, the trade deficit have kind of reduced a bit. And then Sri Lankans we have stabilized the dollar or the foreign currency rates in terms. So therefore, the difference between the the legal and illegal channels have really got shrunk. So therefore, people have started to send the money back through the normal channels. So that has helped us. So that's the stabilizing process. We have controlled the inflation, which was about 95%, into about 50%. So things seems to be good on the short term. We are not out of the wood. But going forward, the biggest challenge is the memories of the people are very short. Last March, last May, people were saying that get us out of queues. We don't want anything else. We'll look after yourself. Now we have got them out of the queues, and then these changes are taking place. And of course, it hurts. It hurts every one of us. But I thought, like your country, early 90s, went through this pain. With no pain, no gain. So that's where we are. So challenges are to market it. And multilateral organization also should understand that the limit for patience on the public as well as the countries. So their fatigue set in because we have been negotiating for the last 1 year with the IMF. I hope that IMF will come in, others will come in before we really disintegrate ourselves, like many other countries which has happened. If your civil service collapses, if your bank collapses, if your armed forces collapse without payment and all those things, no point of you try to come and rescue it. It's beyond repair. Yeah. So this is the time that they need to also reinvent the approach what they do and come out at the right time before it's too late.
I mean, that has been the experience of several countries which have gone through the process of multilateral lending.
Yes.
And the common complaint is that they are not so sensitive to the political changes which take place. See, the political hard shell, the political economy which takes over under these circumstances. So are they learning the lessons? Because see, if any of the things you mentioned happens, then the result is the exact opposite of what the multilateral institution desires.
Exactly.
And the situation gets worse, does not get better.
That's right. No, that is precisely what we are saying, that is time for us. Now, you can have all these arguments happening, whether geopolitical control and all sorts of differences of opinion as to how it should be handled and how you deal with the others who are not traditional creditors and all. But I must thank this opportunity for India, for instance, took leadership in Sri Lanka's debt to the restructuring. They were never a traditional lender. They were not a traditional creditor. But they came out strongly and gave the first assurance, which forced the Paris Club to come in. And then China has given an assurance, which is not comprehensive, but we are talking to them. But be that or may, but until negotiations take place, I think multilateral is also to be flexible and come and do this for us. Otherwise, as you say, patience is running out. And for us as administrators, fatigue is setting in. We have been saying our people, please be there, please bear with us, it is coming. So we have been saying that in December it will come, in January it will come, the February now it's March. Yeah. So beyond this it's going to be very, very difficult. So only hope, as you're saying, if the ultimate objective is to bring back stability, put the country back on recovery path, and ultimately the country to progress and grow, it has to happen now. Because if it disintegrates into parts of some countries, I don't want to mention the names, could be very, very dangerous. And then what's the point of you talking about anything or giving any sorts of counseling?
So which are you talked about your bilateral relationships. Which are the bilateral relationships which have stood by Sri Lanka during this period of time, and how have they helped? Do you think they were up to the mark? Would you have desired more from these bilateral relationships?
Yeah. Definitely, some of them were not up to the mark. We would have expected better. But one country stood out is India. I must thank that everybody who's involved in the not only Indian government and state, but the public started collecting funds, sending us support, humanitarian assistance. But Indian government took some very bold, decisive actions by providing us about 3.9 billion worth of bilateral credit and a credit line, which gave us the lifeline to fight at the battle for another day, which probably saved Sri Lanka from oblivion. And then allowed us to live for another day to fight. And that helped us to stabilize it. So India comes at the very, very happy. To be honest, if you put together all the other countries did and India did, still Indian intervention was higher than the others did. Some of them, of course, everyone helped us. We are not finding fault because it's our problem. We have not properly governed it. We have not put the monies which we have borrowed into project which could have given you return. So not that we are shying away from the responsibilities, but your real friends are tested when bad time comes. So India had stood by us, a friend in need, and a friend indeed, that they say. So we are very, very grateful for India for what it has done for us.
See, funding infrastructure on the basis of debt, there's always a conundrum, and a big conundrum.
Yes.
Because returns are never commensurate.
Yes.
And there is a period, take-off period, there are long period returns. So many countries will tend to get into this kind of a trap.
Yes.
When you fund large infrastructure projects through debt which you raise outside, whether through other country debt or various other kinds of debt, that is always a problem. Now, what is eventually the way out? See, this is a crisis which will keep on occurring in country after country. Now, what is the lesson Sri Lanka has learned as far as the funding of infrastructure goes, of large projects goes? What should be done? What should not have been done?
Yeah, definitely. I think the changes took place in Sri Lanka when Sri Lanka kind of graduated from the low income or the middle income into upper. Then what happens is you access to low interest rate funding from the multilateral, you lose it. So the funding comes at a cost. Yeah. And then with that, it becomes increasingly difficult to get that because you need so much. So then you will probably tend to get easier way of getting funds. With that funds, you think that sometimes some of us as politicians and some of our predecessors and the leaders think that the funding comes in as if somebody is giving you a donation. They have not still seen the real differentiation between a donation and a grant and a loan. So when they comes there, they say, yeah, a loan is coming. But all of a sudden, when the period comes in for repayment, that is where the problems happen. So therefore, it's important that we choose the funding, choose for what project you are taking the funding, what kind of interest rate, what you are going to pay on that, and then put it in use for projects which are sustainable and could generate funding and repay. So if you don't have that, don't touch any of those funding. That's the lesson probably anyone would have learned from the Sri Lanka. But Sri Lanka also at going down on the revenue collection and populist policies, universal free healthcare, universal free education, good, but comes at a price. You must understand that unless your revenue support your model, you're bound to fail. So that's the lessons Sri Lankans have learned, and large private public sector organization lose a lot of money, bleeding. So SOE reforms, use the funds for productive, sustainable, returnable project are something which any country can learn from Sri Lanka's experience.
So populism has a backlash, and the biggest lesson is that you need professional management of finances, and that is one important lesson which you would commend to other nations. Obvious. In the light of what has happened.
Precisely. So fiscal policy and monetary policy has been separated. Monetary policy has been given to the central bank. Central bank should govern it, devoid of politics on a professional basis. Politicians run that, but based on sound policy advice. So therefore, a differentiation between the politics and professional approach need to take place. And we must always look at, when you just give hands out, how are you going to fund that? If you don't fund it, what happens is you are going to print. When you print it without your knowledge, your rupee will destabilize and the inflation will grow. Which exactly what happened to Sri Lanka. 95% of inflation means you have 200,000 of a salary which is worth 100,000. And then your rupee, which was worth 200 rupees, become 370 rupees. Those are the lessons that I think any country must learn. So these high-profile projects are good as long as you have a sustainable revenue model which could pay back.
So populist politics basically ends up in creating consequences and problems.
It does.
The solutions to which are extremely difficult to hard sell politically then.
That's right. No, it is so. That is why to have a balance on that.
Yeah.
The politics is also about your electorate, winning the people. But more than that, it's also important that you can do that, provided you have a good revenue model. So I think so many countries have done that well. So Sri Lanka need to do it also. And then some other problem was also protectionism. So Sri Lanka's export market from the GDP in 1991 was 31%. So when the protectionists came in, you only look at your particular market. It was not compatible with the international market. As a result of it, just come down to 14.5%. We did not realize the effect of it because repayments were not coming in and tourism was generating us money. The moment pandemic happens, tourism almost cut off, almost next to zero. So then only we realized, and the repayments were coming up, debts were getting mature. So it was too late for us to react. So I think it's a good wake-up call. Which could have happened anyway. So it's good that it happened today rather than 10 years' time, because 10 years' time, hopefully we'll have learned the lessons and we will put some sustainable steps to recover.
All the best to you, and I think Sri Lanka is in good, competent hands to be able to take this forward. So we as Indians wish Sri Lanka all the best, and it comes out riding this wave out in control. All the best.
Thank you very much.
So it's a pleasure having you.
Subscribe to Midday India. Get direct notifications on all our videos by clicking on the bell icon.